On an ordinary morning in 79 AD, the people of Pompeii were doing ordinary things. Bakers were pulling bread from ovens. Merchants were opening their shops. A group of gladiators were eating breakfast in their barracks. None of them knew they had less than a day left to live. By early afternoon, the mountain above the city, a peak the Romans didn't even think was a volcano, tore itself open. Mount Vesuvius sent a column of ash and pumice 15 miles into the sky. For hours, that was survivable. Ash and small stones rained down, and many residents packed their belongings and fled. Historians used to believe that was how most people died, buried slowly, suffocating under falling debris over many hours. New volcanic research says that story is wrong. In the early hours of the following morning, the eruption changed completely. The column collapsed under its own weight, and instead of falling upward, it came down sideways. This is called a pyroclastic surge, a wall of scorching gas and ash moving faster than a car on a highway, reaching temperatures over 300 degrees Celsius. Volcanologist Giuseppe Mastrolorenzo studied the skeletons of victims and found something disturbing. Their bodies weren't positioned like people who suffocated slowly. Their muscles were locked in contorted, clenched positions, consistent with instant thermal shock. In other words, most victims didn't suffocate over hours. They died in seconds from heat alone. Why does that distinction matter? Because it changes the entire story we tell about Pompeii's final day. This wasn't a slow burial. It was closer to an execution, arriving too fast for the body to even register pain. The famous plaster casts of Pompeii, the ones showing people curled up, covering their faces, holding each other, aren't just haunting art. They're death masks of the exact instant a 300-degree wave of gas swept through the city. Archaeologists estimate the pyroclastic surge that killed most of Pompeii's remaining population took less than 15 minutes to move from the mountain to the city walls. 15 minutes. That's the entire gap between a normal afternoon and the end of civilization for thousands of people. Roughly 2,000 bodies have been recovered from Pompeii itself, though historians believe the true death toll across the wider region was far higher. And here's the detail that still unsettles researchers today. Many victims weren't running. Some were found sitting. Some were found mid-meal. Some were found holding coins and valuables, as if they still believed they had time to gather what mattered and leave. They didn't know the ground beneath their choices had already run out. For nearly 1,700 years, Pompeii stayed buried, sealed under volcanic material so completely that it accidentally preserved an entire Roman city in the exact moment it stopped. When excavation began in the 1700s, workers didn't just find buildings. They found bread still in ovens, paintings still wet with color, graffiti on walls, arguments between neighbors, jokes, insults, love notes, frozen mid-sentence. Pompeii isn't just a disaster site. It's the most complete photograph of daily Roman life ever discovered, made possible by the very disaster that ended it. Here's the part worth sitting with. Every person in Pompeii believed, right up until the final minutes, that the day would end normally. Bread would finish baking, shops would close, ordinary evenings would happen. That assumption is the most human thing about the entire story. We live the same way, certain the next hour looks like the last one. Pompeii is proof that certainty was never guaranteed. It just usually goes unnoticed, because most days we happen to be right.